Okay, what are you saying, people, and welcome back to your favorite YouTube channel. So today, guys, like always, another weekly analysis for you on the screen and the pairs that will be analyzed today. But do stay to the end of the video because I will be doing a bonus pair different from last week. So make sure you do stay to the end of the video to find out which pair that is. But I do hope you guys enjoy the video, find it useful. And without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so first up, Euro USD, like always. So for this pair, nice moves to the downside this week, which we were expecting. Euro was very weak, dollar was strong. We were expecting to see a fall to the downside. As you can see, a really big drop. Finally taking out our wicks here on the daily and on the monthly time frame back in 2016, December. Or was that January? January 2016, 2017. But we're expecting that wick to go, and as you can see, finally price is taken out that. So next for Euro USD, I'm looking for some retracement. You can see the way we move on the daily. Nice retracement there. Strong bearish leg, retracement, strong bearish leg. So now I do think we'll be coming into the retracement phase for Euro. But again, it's up to you if you want to trade this, because it definitely is going to be more of an aggressive trade. Personally, for me, I'm waiting for price to retrace before I look to get involved with Euro USD again. I'm looking to see if we can retrace back up into this zone since we broke through that very strong candle. Never came back for the retest. So I want to see what type of price action we get here. If you can reject this, we'll be looking for some sells that back down again, break above. We'll look for the retest and then push back into the highs of this consolidation here on the left at 1.06027. So my main focus for Euro USD is this area here. If we keep falling, then I'm just going to leave Euro USD alone because it's very bearish. We've broken through some key monthly support, so for me, I'm going to be staying away unless we can retrace. There might be some nice buys to take this one up higher. I'm looking on the weekly time frame, going back all the way to 2002 or something like that, to find some price action in this area that we're trading in right now. And there's some areas here you can see nice resistance there, nice support resistance here, and nice support down here. So these are some potential areas that we could come into and bounce from and see some upside. But the key thing is wait for price to react, wait for price to start breaking structure and give us some higher highs and higher lows before you do start looking for longs, because if not, we could continue to fall. So for next week for Euro USD, the bias to the upside could be on anticipating that retracement, but for me, I'll be just focusing on price at these levels here, selling back down to where price is now, or if we break above and retest it, we'll be looking for longs back to that 10627 level. So for me, for Euro USD, I'm focusing on that level. If we don't get there, then we don't get there. But I'm looking for a pullback this time back into 1.03786, and we'll be looking for that next low high for another drive lower. If we break above, we'll wait for the retest and longs back into those highs up there. Okay, now we're going to take a look at USD JPY. So for this pair, again, not too much this week. I'm pretty much just draw a box around there, around the past few daily candles there. Price is moving sideways, start between 136,600 and about 134,700. So the market is moving sideways, but I still do have that bearish bias for this one. I'm still anticipating the market falling, hopefully next week, but who knows at this point. USD is still definitely overall in a bullish market, monthly, weekly, daily, even still slowly heading to the upside. But because of where we're trading on the higher time frames, like the monthly, for example, I'm expecting to see some profit taking happening, some buyers coming out of the market, and seeing some downside for this one. So I'm only going to be waiting for the sells. And if we can break underneath that consolidation, that'll be a great place to look to sell. And also, if we jump to the 4H quickly, we do have a key trend line that the market is respecting quite well. So if we can get below this trend line and break out the consolidation to the downside, we'll be looking for the retest, throw some wicks to the upside, and sells back to the downside. And I do have two targets for this one, which is this support here, which we had a big fake out of there, and the fake out support, which is down here at 131,500. So first target there, second target there, but only looking for sells for this one. Of course, you can look to trade within the range here, but for me, it's a little bit too messy. So I'll just be waiting for the breakout and the retest. If we clear the highs, then 137,500, 138, so on and so forth, because there's not really much to look at on the left. So you probably want to use the psychological levels as targets if you break the highs of the consolidation. But if you can break the downside, we'll be looking for the break and retest of around 135, and we've got target 1 here at 133,500 and target 2 at 131,820. Okay, so next up we got USD CAD. So USD CAD this week, not too much from this one. Well, we did see a pretty big move to the upside on Tuesday, but you can see by the end of the week the market's kind of retraced almost a bit more than half of that move. So coming into the week, we're mainly looking at this support, seeing if we can break or hold that level. I said if we hold that support, looking for a move higher back to these highs up here. If we broke through, look for the retest and sells back down again. As you can see, the market broke underneath, broke back above, and then flew. So it's a little bit difficult to trade that one. But overall, USD CAD for me is in a bit of a range. So just looking to buy and sell at these lows and take advantage of those fluctuations. We'll be seeing which way we can break out as well, because I do think there's a big move on the cards for USD CAD, whether to the upside or to the downside, because on the higher time frames, it does look like USD CAD is ranging as well. So the more we keep up this range, the bigger the breakout, which is why I'm expecting a big move on the cards, whether we collapse to the downside or start flying. We'll have to see which way we break to, but if we do break this floor here, we'll be looking for the sales back down there, not necessarily one go, but that's the kind of the swing target for if we break through that support, back down into this support here, break through that resistance there, and then we'll be looking at a push into this level up here at 1.315. So if we do clear the highs, you can look at the breakouts into those areas, and the downside there into 1.255. So that's the plan for next week. Just we'll be focusing on the range, and if we do break out of that, we can look for the break and retest and take advantage of that breakout as well.
Sorry to interrupt the video, guys, but if you are enjoying the content and you find it useful, make sure you go hit the subscribe button down below, and also make sure you drop a like as well. It really does help the channel out. But anyway, back to the video.
Okay, so up next we've got Euro Pound. So Euro Pound melted this week. Our main focus was this level going through the market here. I said if we hold this level, looking for a push back to highs at around 0.87. If we broke to the downside and looking for a move into this level here, as you can see, the market is broken through that level this week. It was very, very bearish, and now we're coming into that support there. So for Euro Pound on the weekly time frame, very, very strong bearish engulfing. I do think we can see some retracement to the upside as we're coming into some strong support here. But I do think we can go and break through this and head a little bit lower as well. So for Euro Pound, looking for some retracement to the upside. Potentially there could be some buys to take advantage of that if we can reject this level on Monday. Probably some nice early buys, but for me, looking for that retracement for another move to the downside. Key support here, which we broke through, no retest of. So hopefully we can retrace to come back and visit this level at around 0.85200, and from there looking for sales for another drop to the downside and potentially further as well. If we do break through this level, then I will be looking at sales back up at this resistance here, which is the same level on the daily time frame I was talking about last week. If we can hold that level, again, we'll be looking for some sales. Basically just looking for that next lower high of the market for that bearish momentum to continue. And if we break through that floor, we'll be looking at a push into this area here as well. So you can probably stretch the trade a little bit further if we break through that support, of course. But for Euro Pound, bearish buys, like I said, there might be some buys coming to the upside, a bit more on the day trading terms, but looking for some more continuations to the downside for Euro Pound. So hopefully you can retrace a little bit higher back into 0.85200, then look for some sells. Or if you do push into 0.85814 as well, we'll look for some sells to the downside, back down to lows at 0.84300. Okay, so now we'll move on to AUD/USD. So for this week, mainly focused on the break and retest of this level of support here, which we did see the market come into this week. Had some nice reactions, but we didn't really push past these lows. So I'm anticipating the market having a bigger pullback this week. Really nice resistance there, second time there, and briefly with that wick down the 4H. But you can see the way the market is moving. We've got that low there, lower high, potentially new lower low. Now I'm looking at the market snapping higher to the upside and potentially coming to test this key level of support. now will be term resistance at around the 0.69800 area, and then I'm looking to sell it back down for that next bearish leg back down to the lows in respect to that lower high up there. So for me, for AUSD, looking to see what we do at this level here. If we break above, retest it, could be some nice buys back up into that area to take advantage of that momentum and of that level there, of course. And then I will be looking for some sells to capture that next lower high back to the downside and targets. Again, you can look at this level here, or you can push it a little bit further back down to the lows, depending how far and how many pips you're looking to capture on that trade. But for me, for AUSD, still bearish on this, looking for that next low high for the next push to the downside. Can look for the buys and then break and retest back up there as well if you do break above. And if you don't break through this level, because we still do have this bearish trend line here holding, we could see a move to the downside, which could happen pretty early in the week. So monitor price in this area, and if you do respect, there could be some nice sells back again to that support there. But for me, mainly focused on this bigger sell opportunity here, looking for a deeper pullback back into 0.69800, 700, looking for that next lower high and sells back down to the lows at 0.67, 680. Okay, so now on to NZD CAD. So as you can see for this pair, still bearish, but moving a little bit sideways, mainly consolidation here. But my main focus for NZD CAD, as it was last week and is this week, is this level of support term resistance. As you can see, nice support there, move to the upside, a lot of wicks here to the upside as well. So coming into next week, if you throw another wick to the upside, looking for sells and for another move back down into these lows here at 0.79463. If we can break above, then we'd expect to see a deeper retracement back to the upside into this area here, and then potentially into that wick up there as well. So mainly focused on this level at 0.80385, and just seeing if we can break and retest it, or come back and respect that level again. That is where I'm looking to base my trades from. The market's still bearish on the higher time frame, so overall I'm still favoring the sells over the buys. But if you do snap this level, now we'll be looking for those short-term buys to the upside to go and retest that level. As you can see, broke through, no retest down the 4H, so we could see a move back into 0.81200, or maybe even back to the highs up here at 0.81700 as well. But we'll just push it into that level just to be safe than sorry. So NZD CAD, still bearish buys, but if you do break above, we'll look for the retest of 0.80400 for buys into 0.81230. Okay, so now on to pound NZD. So this pair is very, very hectic now. It's getting very, very choppy, as you can see. Pretty much just a big range what we've got here. But coming into the week, I was bullish, looking for the market to head higher back into this area of resistance here. Didn't quite get there. We came into the week holding the support, nice move to the upside, was short-lived, and then we melted to the downside with followed by a pretty aggressive pullback. But for me, it does look like the buyers are failing, because I'm still quite bullish on pound NZD, but as you can see, momentum is failing here, and the sellers are winning this battle. And we do have this trend line here as well that the market is still respecting. So although the market is kind of ranging, I'm typically looking for sells in this area here, and then looking for a move back down to the support, where potentially there could be some nice buys back up again. Obviously, if you break through the support, then I do expect us to head back down to these levels down here, 1.88, but we'll just look to treat this as a range for now until we get the breakout. So coming into next week, looking at sells at this trend line or at that zone there where all those wicks have collected. So if you can reject this trend line again, looking for some sells here, maybe a double top coming into that 4H candlestick area there, looking for something like that. Or if you do want to have another wick into that level up there, that's perfectly fine. Again, as long as you just don't break through the highs of this range or that resistance. Looking for sells, stop loss above the zone, and targets back down these lows of the range at 1.91600. So yeah, that's the plan next week for pound NZD. It's a very, very choppy pair. So yeah, I'll only be looking for sells at these areas now, and if you come back down here, could see some nice buys to snap a few pips to the upside from a reaction from that level. But yeah, pound NZD bearish buys as long as we don't break through the resistance, and targets back down at 1.91700. Okay, so now we've got CAD JPY. So CAD JPY is turning into a little bit of a range as well. As you can see, the market is not moving too well. Start between 103.726 and 105.805. Overall for CAD JPY, I was looking for moves to the downside for this week, which we did see, but we didn't come into the main target, which is down into this low here. Did see a push into that support level there after rejecting the highs of the range, and now as you can see, we're in a bit of nowhere around the 105 mark. So for me, for CAD JPY, I'm looking to see if we can get one more push to the upside again, reject that level. Now we'll be looking for some sells that back down to the low of the range, looking for that next lower high. So one there, second one there, third one there, potentially, if we can connect with that trend line. And then we'll be looking for some sells up here, stop loss above that prior high there, and targets at the lows of the range. And then I will start to target this low here at 102 if we can break the range, because at that point then I have a bit more clarity that okay, the sellers are on the battle and we can start to see some more downside. Because if not, we could see something like this reaction and then price, you know, head higher and continue that higher time frame bullish trends for CAD JPY there. So we'll be looking at sells at 105.600. Again, not really focused on the buys. There could be some buys at this support, but I'm more focused on the sells. Like I said, that's still my target there. So we'll be looking at sells from here at 105.789 back down to 103.900, and we'll be looking for the break and retest for kind of like the second part of the trade back down to 102 for next week for CAD JPY. Okay, so next up we've got Pound USD. So Pound USD, as you can see this week, some nice downside momentum, break and retest of that price support there. Really nice support that gave us our price swing low, retested, and continuation to the downside, back down to some lows and actually some new lows as well. So coming into next week, still the same buys, only looking for sells actually. Well, only looking for sells if we can hold that key level at 1.215 and not break through that trend line. If we do break above that, there could be some nice buys, which I'll speak about in a moment. But I'm looking for the retest of this level for another drive to the downside. So got a nice low high up here, second one there. We'll be looking for a third one around that area for another push back down to low. So I'm still bearish on Pound USD. I'm looking at the DXY as well. I do expect to see some retracing for the DXY, so I do think Pound USD, Euro USD, those pairs can see some upside retrace, but I'm still bearish. Higher time frame is still bearish, structure still bearish, so I'm still looking for my sells from the drive lower. If we do break above those, if we break above the trend line and that resistance, use it as support, retest it, then I'll look for buys and a push back into the start of the trend line at 1.24. So that's the only way I would entertain buys next week for Pound. But if we don't do that, looking for another drive to the downside. So my main focus is 1.21500, see what we do there. Sell back down to the lows. If we can reject, break and retest it, we'll look for buys into 1.24. Okay, so next up we got Pound CAD. So Pound CAD this week, not much for this one. I said to you guys, I'm expecting price to go and take out these lows and potentially see some upside and some correction, because we are still trading at that high time frame monthly support. So I'm looking for us to go and retest this key level at 1.58, which we had a break to the downside a couple of weeks ago. Never got the retest, so I am looking at push back up into that level, but we are consolidating. So I do want to see price break out the consolidation to the upside, then I'll look for the retest and a buy to the upside. If not, you know, this consolidation could just lead us to a break to the downside. The market is still quite bearish in the higher time frames, so I wouldn't be surprised if we do break to the downside. So I don't want to be caught on the wrong side of the market looking for buys at this support, you know, as the market does head lower. So we'll wait for this resistance to break, the retest, and a push into 1.58. And you probably want to drop to the hourly or the 30-minute to trade this with good risk to rewards. And if you do break to the downside, then break and retest of the lows, and we can head a lot lower. And I'll be a little bit careful with this because we are at those monthly lows, so I'll probably just use the psychological levels as targets, 1.54, you know, 1.53, 500 as targets, because after that we could see a pretty hefty snap back to the upside for Pound CAD, because the trend is quite exhausted. So for me, for Pound CAD, mainly focused on the buys. Break and retest does look good. I'll have to see what type of price action we get on the retest if we do get that breakout, of course. But I'm mainly looking at push back up to 1.58 this week. So break and retest of the highs outside that consolidation at 1.56294, then buys back into 1.58, and then potentially could actually see some sells back to the downside. If you reject that, the next lower high from that point could form somewhere here, and we could see some nice sells back to the downside again. So do keep an eye out if we do reject that as well for next week for pound CAD. Okay, so next up, pound JPY. So for this pair, nice move to the downside this week, which was expected. We were looking for the market to come back down to this support around the 160 area. Didn't quite get there, as you can see, so close. But I still do expect more downside for pound JPY. I'm looking for one push higher and then a drop to the downside for that next lower high. You can see we've got one there, second one there, looking for a third somewhere. Potentially could retest the trend line. Potentially, and then I'm looking for another driver lower to the downside, back down to 160. Then maybe from there could be some nice buys again back up. But for me, for pound JPY, 164.800, looking for sales at this area, or if you do move a little bit higher, got a nice resistance up here as well, kind of in line with the trend line. See what type of price action we can get from those areas, and looking for another bearish leg to the downside for pound JPY. We tried to move higher, but every time we do have a strong impulsive move for pound JPY to the upside, we keep failing and forming lower highs. So for me, still bearish. If we break through the trend line and both those resistance levels, then most likely we'll head back to highs. But for me, I'm looking for sells for this one, and highs at 168.340. But looking at sells, come back into the trend line, straight that resistance there as well at 166.100. And then sells back to the downside. So for next week, looking at 160, came very close this week, but I do think we can go finish that off this week. Looking for that next lower high to form, either break if we test that level there at 164.684, or another push a little bit higher into 166.100, and a push down to 160. Okay, so gold this week, big drop to the downside, which we were expecting. Not necessarily that big of a drop, but we were looking for a push into 1770, back into this key level of support here. As you can see, the market is broken past that and is looking very bearish, but we were looking for a break and retest of this level here, which, as you can see, nice break and retest and the drop. I said as well, if we do fail at that level, looking for a push into this kind of 1827, 1830 for push to the downside. So either one of those levels, as you can see, the first one held. We really did drop to the downside. Obviously that dollar strength during the week did help, but the market is looking very bearish right now, and it looks like we could be heading down to these weekly lows here, where you can see some few wicks have collected and really big reversals from that area. And it does look like the gold, if we keep that momentum, of course, is headed back down there. So now that we've broken through 1770 as support, it will now be as resistance. So looking to see if we can get a pullback for that move lower to the downside for gold. So for me, still bearish on this one. Break above 1770, then we can look for the retest of this level here. But for me, I'm bearish. Weekly's looking bearish, momentum looking bearish. Broken through that level, if we can retest it, then we'll be looking for some sells. Obviously, if we do break above, then the buys will be looking a lot better. But for now, we're looking for another push to the downside. Targets pretty much at 1700 on the dot. It's basically that whole kind of wick region there we're looking at. You can push it down to the lows potentially, but obviously you got a better chance if you look at 1700, big psychological level as well. So looking for the market to retrace. Right now it's consolidating, so hopefully you can break to the upside, retrace, form a lower high, and then drop to the downside for gold. If you do break above, then look for break and retest of 1770, and then push back up to 1810. And I'll just draw that in real quick, but mainly focused on the sells anyways. That's the only way I'll look to buy gold next week. So for gold, target 1700. Hopefully you can get a pullback and then a drop to 1700 for next week. And now on to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin actually seen some upside this week, which is a little bit unexpected since dollar was very strong as well, and normally they're inversely correlated. but Bitcoin is finding some upside, and to be fair, from a technical standpoint, it does make sense because we are coming to that price swing high from 2017, which the market is currently using as support. Potentially could give us a bullish engulfing in the next 1 day and 6 hours when that candle closes, but for me, I'm classifying this as consolidation. So I do think Bitcoin can see some upside, mainly because the market is in almost desperate need for some retracement. We've been bleeding to the downside for quite some time. Very strong impulsive moves, no real kind of upside retracement, just sideways, and again a big drop. So I do think we can see some upside for Bitcoin. Again, still do have targets lower for a deeper correction, but I think for the time being, the buys do like the best bet. Certainly do want to see price break out of the consolidation first. Don't want to buy into this because we could just see price break and then drop again. In that case, you want to wait for price to break to the downside, retest, and then continue. But looking for some retracement into this wick here on the left at 25,430, and we got the low of the range here with those bodies at 28,519. So yeah, for Bitcoin, looking for a push to the upside, a breakout, a retest of 22,500. And you've got 2 targets there to aim at. If we don't have that breakout, and then we just reject the highs again, then obviously just look for another push to the downside and the lows of the range, and just take advantage of that fluctuations. And the highs of the range I'm classing are around 22,500 on that candlestick body there, not this one there, because it is still a bit of noise down the left. So yeah, for Bitcoin, looking for that break and retest and a move higher into those levels. If we don't and we fail to break out, then expecting them to move back down to 1900. But yeah, mainly looking for that breakout, some bigger retracement for next week. First target 25,350 and the next at 28,430. And finally, we've got our bonus pair, which is US30. So a few people have been asking me to do some indices. So we're going to start with US30 this week for our bonus pair. So for this one, still do have a bearish bias. You can see clear structure here. Yeah, tons of lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, and obviously lower lows as well. So I'm still bearish on this one. I still do have that higher time frame weekly major higher high, which came so close to testing. As you can see, the last time we kind of had that big downside move before we formed these higher highs up here at 36,500. I was looking for the market to come and retest this level, but we came so close. We're pulling back up. Potentially could have already, kind of test that level. The market's not always perfect, but if we do hold some resistance on the daily, I would expect us to roll over and come and really have that test. But if we don't and we break that resistance on the daily, I do think we might see some more upside, and we might have already had that test. So that resistance on the daily is this prior high up here. I'm looking for a double top to form at 31,618. If we can hold this level, looking for a move to the downside, back down to those lows. If we break this level, then a retest and a push into this area of consolidation, because we broke this consolidation, never really got the retest of that. So if you do break above, clear targets at below the consolidation, 32,700. So that is my bias, well, my analysis for US30. Bias is bearish because we're still below that resistance, but if you do break above, I will change that bias to bullish and looking for us to head higher into that consolidation and go and actually have that retest, which actually could present some nice sells if we can reject that back to the downside again. But yeah, US30 still bearish, looking for a double top here at 31.16. Break above that and retest that, or scratch the sells and look for buys back up into that consolidation at around the 32,800 mark for next week.
Okay guys, that is the end of the video. I hope you all enjoyed that, found that useful. Make sure you do leave comments down below for pairs that you want to see as a bonus pair in the future, and I'll make sure I'll get right to them. If you did find it useful, have any questions, or didn't understand anything, leave a comment down below as well and I will reply back to you. If you haven't already, hit the like button, subscribe, share, hit the bell, comment, all that good stuff. Really does help the channel out and it keeps you in the loop so you don't miss out on any content in the future. But guys, I hope you have a great weekend. I'll catch you all next week.